We are set for the 6th round of Porsche Carrera Cup GB. It is a timed race. It will be 20 minutes. The first time the leader crosses the line after 20 minutes are up is when the checkered flag will be waved. Looking down onto the grid, looks like we might have a gap, I fear, where possibly Gus Burton's car should have been, but we'll double check this in a moment once the field is released. These cars new for this year, it's the Type 992 iteration of the 911 GT3 Cup. 4-litre flat 6-engine cars, rear-mounted, 510 brake horsepower. Tim Harvey, these are mega bits of kit.
Absolutely fantastic cars. I've had the privilege of driving them a couple of times, and they are like a full-blown GT car, albeit without ABS and without traction control. So it really does come down to the driver, but times between cars have been incredibly close, and now with this reverse grid we're going to see a terrific race, I'm sure. Well, this partially reverse grid.
Indeed. So pole position is to Matty Graham, who is 4th in the championship. He's had a win already this season as the cars blast away. Fantastic engine noise that they make as they accelerate down towards Oulton corner. Not the start of the race, but a chance to try to get a bit of warmth into the Michelin rubber on which everybody runs. We have a pro class, a pro-am and an am, so everybody has somebody to race against. And the grid lines up thus. Matty Graham is on pole position with the leading pro-am, Charles Rainford, alongside him. Cian Jewis, who was on pole yesterday but made a bad start first time and at the restart, he is 3rd on the grid, with Adam Smalley, a race winner this year, 4th. Then it's Will Martin, the new joint championship leader, and Ross Wiley lining up alongside. Theo Edgerton is next, with Jake Giddings the company, ahead of Ryan Ratcliffe and Will Aspin. Hugo Ellis and Nathan Harrison come next. On the 7th row of the grid, Jack Bartholomew and local driver Seb Morris. Question mark over Gus Burton because the car wasn't on the grid. Oliver White was in the gravel yesterday. He's hoping for better. He's ahead of Angus Whiteside, and the dominant driver yet to be beaten in the AM class, Josh Stanton. That is Charles Bateman and Mark Radcliffe ahead of Justin Sherwood, the reigning AM champ, and Nigel Rice, Peter Kyle Henny and Michael Clark round out the grid. So the field making its way behind the leading car up towards Clay Hill, then towards Druids, and you have Matty Graham, as I say, the man on pole position.
Yeah, as you say, Matty Graham's already had a race win this year, but revelation of this meeting so far has been Pro-Am driver Charles Rainsford, who qualified 4th overall and finished 4th overall, having run 2nd for much of the race yesterday, and of course lines up now on the front row of the grid. And as a Pro-Am driver, dicing with the pro drivers, that's a fantastic weekend's racing so far, whatever happens in this race.
Absolutely. Now, Cian Jewis came into yesterday on pole position for the first race, made a bad start, dropped a little bit of time and lost places, but there was a red flag and there was a restart, and he made a bad start again. So he is 3rd on the grid, but tied on points now with Will Martin. Will's had 2 wins to Cian's 1. But he's got to get that start hooked up to make any progress. Yeah,
they're difficult to get off the line. They're big, fat, slick tyres on the rear, lots of power, and the balance between too much power and wheel spin and bogging the engine down is a difficult one to do. But the man who won yesterday, Will Martin, made 2 cracking starts yesterday, and he starts on the inside of the 3rd row, immediately behind Cian Jewis.
It's going to be a lively round towards Old Hall Corner. That first right-hander, that is for sure. So the last car into place is going to be that of Michael Clark, new to the championship this year, 25 there, just nestling alongside the camera, Mark Radcliffe, and there 31, as it says on the back of the car, is Michael Clark. The green flag means everybody is ready for the start. The 5-second board is shown. The drivers now look towards the lighting gantry. The lights go red, engine notes rise. The best start will be made by whom? They blast away. Good getaway by Matty Graham. Cian Jewis makes a better start than yesterday. Charles Rainford in the largely silver car goes 2nd. Adam Smalley in the yellow and blue red line car goes right round the outside of Will Martin, hooks it over the curb and stays ahead of him.
But crucially for Matty Graham, he got the car away, launched very nicely. The car jumped off the line and he was into Old Hairpin first.
So down towards Island Bend they go, and Matty Graham it is, trying to build that gap. Charles Rainford in 2nd place. Jewis is 3rd, 4th is Smalley. Brake for the hairpin, turn through that tight right, back onto the power now. Speed building, but all the way Matty Graham is essaying to build that advantage as the cars come then out of the hairpin, run a bit wide over the curb, use all of the real estate that you can, and Cian Jewis on the lights there to try to distract Charles Rainford, to force an error out of him, and a big lock up there mid-pack as they dive down towards his locks.
Yeah, trying to get a bit more heat in these tyres. Tyres are a crucial part of this because it's a heavy car and a very fast car. All the cars running on the Michelin controlled tyre. But they have 3 sets of tyres for the qualifying and the 2 races. And so some people have got a pair of tyres at least left for the left-hand side this race. I know the Red Line boys do, and that includes current race leader Matty Graham, although I don't believe that Kian Jewis or Will Martin have those new tyres available this race.
Now the race leader goes through, Matty Graham, getting away from Charles Rainford. Rainford's main target here is to win the Pro-Am class. There are points within that class. And there, as you see, a dive by Theo Edgerton with smoke coming out of the car as he locks up and runs wide and gives the place straight away back again there. Going through the corner, that was against Ross Wiley. The point about Charles Rainford is he is 2nd overall, leading his class. The next Pro-Am car is down in 9th place.
Yeah. And there'll be calls for him to be moved up to the Pro Division, I should think, very quickly from the fellow Pro-Ams, because he's had a sterling weekend. Ross Wiley, the car that, the sort of white and blue car just coming in shot now, that Theo Edgerton tried to pass. He's never driven these cars before this weekend. He jumped in the car on Wednesday for the test. These guys had a private test here on Wednesday and then the TOCA test on Friday. And that was his first time in the car. And Ross Wiley's been driving very well, replacing Peter Mangin in the Toro Verde team.
Indeed so, as we have the cars making that climb up Clay Hill. Now, Kian Jewis is getting a bit frustrated here with Charles Rainford. Doesn't matter whether you're in Pro or Pro-Am or Am, it's the same car, so it's down to your ability, how well the team operates the car, so they're very evenly matched as the base product. And Charles Rainford, who is a real star of historic racing as well as a very modern style GT car, is keeping Kian Jewis, who came into Porsches out of single-seater racing. He's keeping him at bay, and right now Kian Jewis doesn't have an answer.
Well, I asked Charles what was the reason for his pace improvement this weekend. He said, well, I found the correct engine map. He said, I've been running in the wrong engine map. Now I've found the right engine map to run it in, I'm flying. So maybe that's a hint to everyone else to check which engine map they're in.
Very honest answer as well, rather than saying it's all down to his ability. Down towards Island Bend, Matty Graham leads the way. He's done the fastest lap of the race. Now, remember, it's not a set number of laps. It's against the clock, this race. We've still got 16.5 minutes just over as the cars accelerate from the hairpin. Wide in the background there, that was the Jake Giddings, Ryan Ratcliffe battle. Jake Giddings getting slightly crossed up or outfoxed on the wrong line. Hugo Ellis goes through number 8. Same colours as the touring cars of Dan Camish and Ash Sutton that we saw earlier on, and another lock up there because right on his tail, diving down to his locks, Seb Morris, who suffered quite a bit of damage in yesterday's race. Yeah, yesterday's race sadly was a bit of an incident-filled race. Hopefully today will be a little bit calmer, but there were a few people that suffered penalties as a result of yesterday's action, not least amongst them Jack Bartholomew, who was deducted 2 points for contact with Stanley, and also there were points deducted later on for Stanley himself. Into Lodge Corner and out of Deer Leap come the cars. This is the run to Old Hall Corner. This is the race leader, Matty Graham. He's had 1 victory this season, and 4th in yesterday's race is another lock-up from Ross Wiley, still adapting to these cars. That forces him out wide, and Theo Edgerton, the reigning sprint challenge, the Cayman champion, right there on his tail. Yeah, and you get 1 lock-up, and very quickly you get another if you're not careful. So difficult in these cars. The moment you unweight the inside wheel, if you're not braking in a dead straight line, a fraction too much brake pressure, and you get a lock-up. To Island Bend they come. Hugo Ellis under attack from Seb Morris on the outside, who locks up, goes all over the grass and just avoids that tyre stack. But look at the field streaming past him. Yeah, and he couldn't get the car turned. Of course, Seb Morris has come from GT Racing. Watch on the outside. He comes down the outside, just can't stop the car, gets a lock-up. He comes on and off, tries to do a bit of cadence braking to get the car slowed, but he just can't get it turned in time or stopped. But of course, you know, Seb Morris has spent years driving British GT and GT machinery, all with ABS. So it's very hard for your right foot to unlearn that gift of ABS when you jump back in a car like this. Had Matty Graham, the race leader, driving in GT4 style machinery this year to good effect. Theo Edgerton and Ross Wiley having a good little fight here. Theo Edgerton proving the value of the Cayman Series, the Sprint Challenge, by graduating to Carrera Cup after a couple of seasons here and running in 7th place in this race, the 6th round of the championship. Ross Wiley, very experienced, very versatile GT-style racer, keeping him at bay as the cars plunge downhill. But Matty Graham, a 2.5 to the good up front, has done another new fastest lap of the race. Yeah, these cars tend to set their fastest laps sort of anywhere between laps 4 and lap 7.
They set the tyre pressures quite low because they come up rapidly with the amount of heat and stress that they're put under. So the tyres are really set with a minimum pressure set by Michelin, it must be said, for safety reasons, but it takes a few laps before they get fully up to pressure and temperature.
On this lap, in the first sector of the lap, the first third of the lap, Charles Rainford quicker than Matty Graham. Cian Dewis quicker than both of those ahead. Cian Dewis has just done 2 absolute best sector times on this lap. As you see Justin Sherwood there, number 7, get up the inside of Nigel Rice, so that's a change for 3rd place in the AM class. It's for 19th overall, but 3rd in AM, and the separate AM points table is what they're really fighting over. And Justin Sherwood, who's made a real habit out of winning the AM class in races and the championship in recent seasons, goes ahead.
Yeah, Nigel Rice, who was in originally in the very first Carrera Cup, I asked him how the cars had changed, and his eyes just widened, and he can't believe how much faster they are. That's Nigel Rice there, just running a bit wide himself. Can't believe how much quicker they are and harder to drive.
That's how Justin Sherwood was able to make the move, wasn't it? Because Nigel made that little mistake, goes through, and as they head into Oulton corner, the race leader is already down to Island Bend. The margin 1.4 seconds last time. Graham to Rainford were not yet at the halfway point. Now, Adam Smalley, 4th. He's a man to watch because not only is he a winner, he's also the Porsche Junior. He's in his first year of 2 under Porsche's wing and tutelage, and driving the red line racing around the car. Adam Smalley in his home circuit, the man from Oulton in the file, trying to make progress as you look at Ross Wiley, the man who is currently in 6th spot.
Yeah, and Rainford and Dewis, who both had purple sectors on that last lap, didn't actually end up getting the fastest lap, although I see that Rainford is on for it again with the fastest first sector.
You're looking here at the battle not to be last. Seb Morris getting himself back ahead of Peter Kyle Henny there. Peter Kyle Henny was stranded on the grid earlier on, but Seb Morris has been off the road and back on again, and goes through as the cars now make their way up over the timing line. Matty Graham it is that leads the way. Rainford is still 2nd, Dewis 3rd, 4th Smalley. Now what about Will Martin? Because the joint championship leader is 5th, but the other joint championship leader is 3rd. So there, going through shot number 10, that's Will Martin. He won yesterday's shortened restarted race, but right now he's a bit stuck.
Yeah, and I think this is a function of not having any new tyres for this race. He used his best set of tyres yesterday and used them to good effect. And you could see a slight lack of grip there as he exited Cascades, but he just don't think he's got the tyres to fight any further forward.
Cian Dewis a little bit deep into Island Bend maybe that time, and Adam Smalley in the car that is entered by Duckham's USA Racing with Redline, getting a fraction closer to him as they come over the brow. But Charles Rainford is still doing a really outstanding job there, humbling everybody else in Pro-Am as the cars wriggle out of his blocks. But Will Martin's trying to creep up onto the back of Adam Smalley, who is creeping up in turn onto the tail of Cian Dewis's car. Cian thinking about points out of all of this, and it does show how difficult in certain circuits it is to counter that reverse grid. Yeah,
it is, and passing is difficult. It is possible here, but the margins between getting past or locking up, as we've seen, and running out wide are so fine that it's you tend to follow the car, try and pressure them into a mistake, try and get them to open the door and give you an easy pass rather than do a wild lunge yourself.
So the leaders go by. That's 7 laps in the book. 1.7 seconds is the margin. That time around, Matty Graham really did respond.
Yeah, we're about halfway through now with 10 minutes to go on the race, so we're going to get about 14 laps, aren't we?
We are indeed, as there Adam Smalley in the yellow-nosed car dives downhill. And Nathan Harrison, number 27, is on a mission. That's Angus Whiteside ahead of him. They are both in the Pro-Am class. Nathan was really good at the start of the season, but his pace hasn't been as good this weekend. Angus Whiteside, only in his 2nd season of car racing, came out of the Ginetta GT Academy last year. Yeah,
this is the battle for 4th place in Pro-Am. Angus Whiteside adapted very quickly to these cars. As you say, only 1 season of racing in GT Academy, and then he's suddenly in a 520 horsepower car, supported by Porsche Centre Preston, and going very well, I think, this year.
Nathan Harrison drove in the championship last year. I know it's a different type of 911 GT3 Cup, and he's got some experience of how it should be handling from that earlier generation of car. Angus Whiteside staying ahead right now as the cars make that climb once more. up Clay Hill. Matty Graham, though, continues to consolidate the advantage up front, and Will Martin is struggling to do anything at all about Adam Smalley. In fact, he's not really close enough, and Smalley, for the second half of this lap, has dropped back from Jewett. You're
right, it looks like he's closing in on him a bit, but all systems go for Matty Graham in the front, and the gap now is 2 seconds.
So it's bigger now than at any time in the race hitherto. 8 3/4 minutes are on the clock as of now. And downhill heads Will Martin. Charles Rainford still way up the road over Ryan Ratcliffe and then Will Aspin. They are second and third in the Pro-Am class. So Charles Rainford heads down towards Island Bend. Cian Jewett, that we saw at the British Touring Car Championship event when he drove in Formula 4. He then rose to Formula 3 and made that switch of careers from single-seaters to GT cars last year. Ross Wiley goes wide in the blue and white livery. Theo Edgerton pounces and breezes by coming out of the hairpin.
Yeah, that's exactly the sort of pressure, a mistake that I was talking about that makes a pass so much easier.
Theo Edgerton then down to his lots, launching over the curbs there, but the man that won the Cayman Championship last year stays ahead of Ross Wiley as they climb Clay Hill with the clock ticking on down. This is now lap number 9, and here was the move. Big lock-up by Wiley.
Yeah, you could see as he came into shot the puff of smoke from the front tyre that was locked up. They do have adjustable brake bias in this car, and more than any other car, actually, you run more brakes on the rear than any other car because rear engine, big rear tyres, you've got a lot of braking capability from the rear of the car, and being a very stiff platform chassis, there's not so much weight transfer, and a big rear engine, there isn't as much weight on the front wheels anyway to slow the car down. So finding that right brake balance point is a key part of getting the best out of these cars. And it also changes during the race as the front tyres get a little bit worn. You have to move the brake bias a little bit further to the back, as evidence of that just in front has been another lock-up. Nobody running wide, and another lock-up in the distance. The front tyres are really taking the strain of this race.
Yeah, one of those lock-ups in the distance was out of that leading group. I think the first one we'd come across was either there, Jake Giddings, or Ryan Ratcliffe behind. It was around their part of the circuit, but another significant one, which may have been around the Cian Jewett area, heading into Island Bend. 6 3/4 minutes are on the clock. Giddings, Ratcliffe heading to his locks, and there, contact as Angus Whiteside is attacked by Nathan Harrison. Over the grass and back onto the road comes Angus Whiteside. Nathan Harrison is the championship leader in Pro-Am, but he's way back at the moment and having to get out his elbows. Yeah,
in his second year, having moved from Team Hard over to not contesting the championship, but over to Redline Racing. Nathan Harrison, his second year, putting the rookie under a lot of pressure.
Now the race leaders have just gone over the line. This is a replay of what happened between those two as they headed into his lops.
Yeah, Angus was slightly ahead and braked a little bit later, but just got that wheel locked up, had no choice but to go across the grass, and they come out in the same position they were.
6 minutes on the clock into Old Hall Corner now. This is for 14th and 15th overall, still 5th and 6th in Pro-Am. Remember that Charles Rainford, the class leader, is miles up the road. There you go through, which is the Matty Graham car, and Jewett into the back of Rainford there, gives him a little nudge, a helping hand out of the hairpin, saying, I need to get past you. And Charles Rainford now is under huge attack from the joint championship leader, Cian Jewett, there, number 26.
Yeah, flashing the headlights as well to try and put a bit more pressure on. Not that it usually works, I must say, but Charles Rainford really driving a superb race. But if he keeps these two behind him to the end of the race, he'll have done an incredible job, really. For a Pro-Am driver, that is quite sensational.
He's either a Pro-Am plus or a Pro minus. I'm trying to work out which, but as we say, he is so far ahead of the class opposition. Down towards Lodge Corner they come. Now, as Jewett has caught him and got a bit stuck, so Adam Smalley has caught back up to Jewett. So that second, third, fourth battle pack is concertinaed nicely.
Yeah, and I fancy Will Martin might make this a four-car bunch as well.
But he's running out of time because as he breaks the beam, we've got just 4 3/4 minutes of this race to go. Rainford is under attack. He could afford to let them go and still take his Pro-Am class winning points.
Yeah, but what a feather in his cap if he could finish second. Yesterday he was running second on the road for a long time, and it was actually about this sort of point in the race that he lost a couple of positions and dropped down to fourth. So I'm sure he'd like to finish on the overall podium for the race, as well as wrap up his class championship. For the other drivers, in fairness as well. Oh, and running wide there, that was Was that Will Martin? It was Will Martin. He locked up, so that puts him out of contention of challenging Adam Smalley. But yeah, I'm sure he'd love to fit. Oh, then we've got Ollie White and someone else missing. Ollie White in reverse.
Jack Bartholomew was 89. He was off the road. Seb Morris has just pitted. White and Bartholomew in strife at the hairpin. It's all kicked off all of a sudden. Ollie White's had a pretty torrid weekend, I'm afraid, in the gravel on the first lap yesterday, but he's got a bit further, albeit now with damage on the left rear corner. No such dramas for this man, leader, Matty Graham.
Yeah, out front, in front with that fastest lap, an extra point under his belt as well. No pressure. He can just bring this car home. He's got a very comfortable gap now with 3.5 minutes to go. That's Charlie Bateman in the pits in the Parker. Sorry, Seb Morris in the pits with the Parker racing car. Not sure what's happened to him.
Well, that's the White and Bartholomew drama. It looks like Ollie White made a pretty serious lunge up the inside.
Yeah, they got connected under the braking, didn't they, which just dragged them out wide.
So the race leaders go through with just over 3 minutes still on the clock. Further battles rage on lower down. Nigel Rice coming into Lodge Corner. Michael Clark behind him. The recovering Peter Kyle Henney and Ollie White heads for the pit lane. One fears with damage because there is another red line car for the pits. Yep. He has just come into the pit road in front of us as way up the curb there, bounces, launches even, Matty Graham. But look at the gap he's got.
Yeah, he doesn't need to be running over the curbs that heavily at the moment, does he? Just needs to bring the car home. What's the old adage? Win the race in the slowest possible time, especially once you've got fastest lap in the bank. That's maximum points then.
Yes, you only have to win by 1,000th of a second as long as you win. So he's 4.5 seconds to the good right now. Look at the clock, 2.5 minutes. Flying lap is just under 1 minute and 22 seconds. So we're going to get 2 more laps out of the race at the end of this one.
Yeah, I think Cian Jewis will be very disappointed, really, with the results this weekend. He was fastest in the test on Friday. He was fastest in the test on Wednesday. He qualified on pole position, but he hasn't had a win under this so far. To take home.
No, but he will outscore Will Martin in this race, which is, if you like, the consolation, because he will, rather than be tied on points, just edge away a little. So there is Matty Graham, the race leader, virtually in a league of his own now, so far ahead of Charles Rainford, is he? Now, Cian Jewis, we are talking about being third. Of course, he will get second-placed points within the pro category. So third on the road, second in class. It could be worse. But of course, equally, Will Martin will move up a place, and that's the championship rival. Yeah,
and Matty Graham was only 8 points behind coming into this race, and he's going to score maximum points. Only 2 points between the positions, plus the fastest lap point, so he will close up on me. Very close championship standings, I think, after this race.
So it's a very, very good championship, this. Ultra competitive. Cian Jewis turns through. Accelerates now out of his lops. The Team Parker racing car there behind is 21 of Adam Smalley, who I think also will be a bit frustrated. He also wanted to do well on home soil here, but of course he's new to this type of car this year, still learning about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the Porsche Junior with 2 years agreement from Porsche to do this and support his championship, you know, next year is probably the year where he will be really, really strong. Not that he isn't this year, but he's still a rookie.
Yeah, that's right. There is a separate rookie competition for which he is not eligible because although he is a rookie, as he's the Porsche Junior, he's removed from that competition because he's got this 2-year programme, as Tim has explained. Last lap here at Oulton Park in this 6th round of the Porsche Carrera Cup Great Britain, and Matty Graham is on target for a 2nd victory of the season, and he has absolutely blitzed everybody in this race. Matty won the 2nd race, the equivalent race at Donington. Big lock-up though there.
Yeah, you see, these are the mistakes you shouldn't be making when you've got a comfortable 5.5 second lead. You really should, you know, that could lead to a puncture. Don't need to be doing that, Matty. You've got all the points in the bag. But yeah, he'll be very, very pleased with this race. He's had a lonely race up the front, really, but they're always the ones that you enjoy the most.
So for 2nd, it is certainly not lonely. Rainford, Jewis, and then Smalley together, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, out of Knickerbrook they come. There is the race leader. That is Matty Graham coming past the water tower into Druids, and a 2nd victory of the season beckons for him in this car that is run by Simon Leonard's Red Line Racing equipe. He's got an absolute fleet of cars, definitely one of the top Porsche teams, and Matty Graham, one of the top Porsche drivers in the championship this year. Out of Lodge Corner he comes. The checkered flag awaits as he comes over Deer Leap, and a big round of applause as Matty Graham wins for the 2nd time this season. Charles Rainford, brilliant drive to hang on to 2nd spot to repel the challenge of Cian Jewis and Adam Smalley, 2nd overall, and the winning Pro-Am Charles Rainford. Top job. Will Martin 5th, Theo Edgerton is 6th, and Josh Stanton here, we've not seen very much of him, but he's unbeaten in the AM contest. He's going to make this now 6 out of 6 as he comes across the timing line. Josh Stanton, 15th overall, but nobody's got an answer to him in that class.
Not at the moment. Fantastic drive, and man of the meeting for me has to be Charles Rainford, really. Absolutely brilliant performance this weekend, but Matty Graham taking the honours for this race. Certainly the start was 80% of the race done for him. The other 20% having a pair of nice new tyres on the left-hand side of the car.
So Matty Graham, the race winner, the Pro-Am winner, as we've been making the point. Charles Rainford there with a big flash of the lights in number 99, and the winning AM driver, Josh Stanton. So really impressive effort there by Matty Graham. I think really only that last lap of the hairpin could you point the finger at a small error, but other than that, dominated it, and of course got the fastest lap. All of that done from pole position in style.
Yeah, I'm sure team owner Simon Leonard will be saying, look, you don't need to be hitting the curbs and locking up when you've got a big lead, so just something to learn there for future reference. But yeah, more to the point, he thoroughly dominated that race.
And Charles Rainford, in the end, 5.7 seconds back, but a great effort to not just win in Pro-Am, but to keep virtually the entire Pro grid behind him as well. And 2nd in Pro-Am, Ryan Ratcliffe. 3rd, Will Aspin. In AM, Josh Stanton, the winner there from Mark Radcliffe, returning to Carrera Cup GB this season after a couple of years away doing the International Porsche Super Cup that supports the Grand Prix